David. Bongiorno, thanks for coming on to Radio Italia Uno, Adelaide.
Antonio, thank you for having me.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about this time? What films are you going to suggest?
Well, Saturday is ANZAC Day,
Hmm.
and because it's ANZAC Day, I thought nothing better to start with Gallipoli, Peter
Uh-huh.
Weir's film with. Have you seen
Yes,
that?
I don't think so. It must. Well, it's a fairly old. Well, fairly old. It's a few couple of decades old at least. Yeah.
It's a couple of decades old, but
Yeah.
it's something that we turn our minds to every ANZAC Day, or at least I
Yes.
do.
Yes.
It's a beautiful film by Peter Weir,
Hmm.
and Mark Lee and Mel Gibson are the stars of the film. Now, everybody knows Mel Gibson, but
Yeah.
Mark Lee, one of the sad things about the film from a professional perspective, Mark Lee was the bright, blonde star of the film, and Mel Gibson was support or second support. And Mark Lee never kicked off after that. Mel Gibson went into the stratosphere, became a
Oh.
superstar. But Mark Lee is Archie Hamilton in this film, who's a sprinter. And the film takes place in Western Australia. And like all young men from that period, he's dazzled by the propaganda to join the Great War. When you watch it, you can't help but understand why they were sucked in, because they were sucked in, they were misled, they were deceived. I see you smiling.
Yes.
Tell me.
Yes. No. No. Well, sucked in. Well, I will not explain the sucked in.
Oh, hai ragione, hai ragione.
So,
Sucked in is colloquial Australian English. They were deceived, they were tricked, they were
yeah.
misled.
Mm.
And what happens in the film, it's a carnival atmosphere, and you can understand why these young men from the bush were drawn to Perth, drawn to enlist, and drawn to go to Anzac Cove, and most of them ended up being slaughtered. They're sprinters. Mark Lee and Mel Gibson are sprinters in this film, and it brings in one of the most iconic exchanges in Australian cinema history. Mark Lee is a great runner, and his uncle or his grandpa, before every race says, "What are your legs?" And Mark Lee says, "Steel springs." And his uncle says, "What are they going to do?" And he says, "Hurl me down the track." And his uncle says, "How fast can you run?" And Mark Lee says, "As fast as a leopard." And he says, "How fast will you run?" "As fast as a leopard." "Then let's see you do it." It entered the lexicon. It's some of the most famous dialogue of an Australian film. Have you heard that exchange before?
No, I haven't. That's interesting.
David Williamson wrote the screenplay.
Yeah.
Now, Archie Hamilton is Mark Lee and Frank Dunn is Mel Gibson, and they meet at a race, and they're both great sprinters. And Mark Lee convinces Mel Gibson to come to Perth and enlist in the Great War. At the end of the film, you wish neither of the young men had enlisted in the Great War. There's training in Egypt, then they're sent to
Okay.
Anzac Cove, and that's something we reflect on this Saturday. Australia's national myth. Basically, Gallipoli, Anzac Cove is a big part of this country's cultural development, and
Yeah.
it brings with it a fair degree of patriotism. Now, the film avoids that to its credit by making it a character drama about two young men going off on a great adventure. The war's there, you can smell it, you can feel it creeping up, you know it's coming, it's inevitable. But by focusing on the two young men, it's it shows the tragedy of war through the loss of friendship,
Nice.
the loss of life, the loss of youth.
It
It's
certainly makes it very personal. Yes.
it's very, very personal, and it's a story. It's very intimate. It moves at a gentle pace until we get to Anzac Cove, and then Anzac Cove things hasten, things quicken, and the sickening reality of Anzac Cove is laid bare for all of us to watch. Now, the film has small details that make it an
Hmm.
accurate reflection of military life. We look at Frank. Frank brings three friends with him, and we look at basically farewell balls, inedible food, the terror and boredom of war, because war is long periods of boredom punctuated by periods of horror and disgust. And it's one of the things about the film is none of the men can articulate why they're there. Mel Gibson's character, Frank, asks a lot, why are we here? Why are we fighting a war that's not ours? And he gets accused of cowardice. And the film makes you think about why we went. And there are reasons why we went and why we shouldn't have gone. But it's great to see two young men, Mark Lee and Mel Gibson, at full stretch, performing beautifully. Mark Lee went on to do TV, theatre, direct in Australia. Mel Gibson went on to great things. You watch Lee and you think, there's a sense of waste from a professional perspective. What a pity Mark Lee never got on to become an international star. And there's the sense of loss from the war itself. Gibson's great. I don't care what people say about him. He may be colourful, he may be, wacky, zany, but he's an extraordinary actor, and this is probably one of his best roles. And you realise how good he is, how good he was, and how good he continues to be. One of the other things, Antonio, he's because he's young and he's not grizzled and old and grey. He's very handsome, and that's one of the things you see him on the screen. Think, my God, the screen's made for him. He eats up the screen. He's damn good looking. And it's like, that's one of the most, I think we forget how good looking he actually was. The film's grounded by Billy Hunter. Now, Billy Hunter is in every Australian film, literally, as a character actor. And he is Major Barton. And he's the man who's responsible for blowing the whistle to send the men over the parapet to be cut down by machine gun fire. And he's measured, he's agonised, and it's a beautiful role. It's one of Billy Hunter's best roles. And you watch him and you think, could I give the order? Would I give the order? And you wonder if you could. He has to do it because he's commanded to, but he has to live with sending men to their death, and that comes across in Billy's performance, and you see it on the screen. The sense of loss at ANZAC Cove is palpable. Men are cut down. The film is dead bodies, and dead bodies. It's a criticism of war. It is a criticism of war, and people flock to it. Now, I don't know if there was a war now. I don't think anyone would be convinced, deceived, misled to enlist. Times have changed. It's not a great adventure. It's a great slaughter.
Well, we have war happening at the moment, and even we hear Donald Trump wants to avoid putting troops on the ground because loss of life is very, very, very difficult nowadays. Difficult to accept. Yeah.
Difficult to accept and difficult to account for. Absolutely. It's the final scene is devastating, and it stays with you. It stays with you forever. I'm not going to say what happens to which of the men, but it's worth watching. It'll stay with you forever. It haunts you, and you need to see it at least once. At least once. The music is beautiful. It's by Jean-Michel Jarre. I don't know if I said his name properly, but it's electronic synthesizer 70s music. And it sits, for some reason, it sits very well with a 1915 war pick. It's an interesting juxtaposition of 70s electronic music with the 1915 war. It's regarded by many as one of Australia's best films, and I'd have to agree with that.
Well, it brings together some very big names. Weir and Williamson. David Williamson's a great, also theatre writer, playwright.
Extraordinary playwright, extraordinary. Probably our greatest playwright, and Peter Weir's one of our greatest directors. So it's major firepower from a production perspective, and major firepower from a star perspective. And people who watch it, it's on Foxtel, it's on Binge. They'll wonder why Mark Lee never kicked off, and it's one of the great mysteries. You've got to see it at least once. And the, the devastating factor is they're kids. This is when I watched it when I was in '81, when I was I was in primary school, and I've watched it over the years. And the older I get, the younger they get.
Yeah.
And the children, they're kids, they're young men, and they joke. They believe they'll make sense of it once they get there, and that's the quiet trick of the film. Time passes, choices are made, orders are followed, and then you see the cost. And the film knows, the cost is going to be coming.
Mm.
And when it hits you, it's good to watch it at home because many people will tear up. I teared up in the cinema when I watched it as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old. It's a deeply moving film and it stays with you forever. It really does. And that's on Foxtel and it's
Yeah.
on Binge.
So to get all those names, okay, so Peter Weir and David Williamson are big names, maybe not the actors. That must have been how did that happen? Who organises and things like that in a movie?
In terms of the casting, I don't know where Mark Lee was found, but what a discovery.
Yeah.
What a discovery. Wholesome, blonde hair, rosy cheeks, clear complexion, open, young man, gullible, trusting, and Mel Gibson is a little bit older. He brings some salt, some crust to the film because he's an unemployed rail worker, whereas Archie's a young man who's finishing on the cusp of adulthood at 18. Frank, Mel Gibson's character, is a little bit older, and he's been laid off, so he's a bit gruff. You wish it never happened. It did happen,
Yeah.
and watching it happen is devastating. It really is.
Oh, yes, indeed. And it's, Peter, you said Peter Weir is probably the biggest director. And so when it came out, it was a big hit.
It was a massive hit.
Yes.
And when it went to video, it enjoyed a second life. It was sold internationally, and it reviewed largely well everywhere. I can't think of any negative reviews from when it was released.
No?
No, I think it won a slew of awards. The cinematography is beautiful. It's the music. The music is Jean-Michel Jarre's electronic music is something that might pique curiosity and get people searching the web to listen and buy some records, buy some CDs, DVDs, CDs. But the story is the music sits well. The playwright David Williamson's script is sterling. Peter Weir's direction is subtle. He tells the tale at a leisurely pace, but like I was saying earlier, it picks up pace. And when it picks up pace in ANZAC Cove, the heart starts to beat, the pulse starts to pump, and it's you react physically to the film as you see it happen.
Ah, okay. Thank you. So that's certainly in theme for this week. And so maybe I'm guessing you're going to have another movie to suggest that's in theme.
Not in theme because I think one war film's enough. I think if you think we don't want to be a complete downer on the broadcast, but the story of Gallipoli is something that's relevant for Saturday.
Yes.
I have another Australian film, and that's a quiet genius and unrecognised. Mark Lee was not recognised and given his just recognition. Somebody who's stratospherically great, somebody who's probably the greatest cinematographer in the history, or not in the history of cinema, that's a bit of hyperbole from me, but Christopher Doyle. Christopher Doyle is a Sydney-sider, and Christopher Doyle moved to Hong Kong many years ago. Christopher Doyle is the subject of an Australian documentary that is on Apple TV, and it's called Like the Wind. So 2 Australian films today, Gallipoli and Like the Wind. Like the Wind is a documentary. Now, even if you don't like documentaries, I love documentaries, but even if you don't like them, Christopher Doyle is fascinating. Like the Wind is a documentary about him. He shot some of the most beautiful films ever made. Now, listeners may not be aware of Wong Kar-wai, but they'll certainly be aware of Phil Noyce. Phil Noyce is another Australian director who made films and is making films still. Wong Kar-wai is a Hong Kong filmmaker who made In the Mood for Love, Happy Together. And if you take note of the name Wong Kar-wai and Google, you see Christopher Doyle as his cinematographer. He's a Sydney-sider. Now, he shot In the Mood for Love, and if you've never seen it, watch it this weekend along with Gallipoli. Every frame looks like a painting.
Ah,
Every frame. Antonio, he's got the most gorgeous eye. People listening will know Vittorio Storaro.
yeah.
Vittorio Storaro is Bertolucci's cinematographer of choice. And Vittorio Storaro is probably the greatest cinematographer in the history of cinema. I put Christopher Doyle on the same level as Vittorio Storaro.
Oh,
Now, Storaro did Bertolucci. Now, Christopher Doyle does Wong Kar-wai and Phil Noyce. Christopher Doyle shot Rabbit Proof Fence. Have you seen that?
yes. A long time ago. I don't think I remember much of it, but yes, I do remember seeing it.
Now,
Watching
that's
it.
one of the most important. It's another film that leaves you teary-eyed, a three-hanky
Yeah.
weepy, literally. It's devastating again. And Christopher Doyle is the cinematographer behind Rabbit Proof Fence. Now, why I like this film, why I like this documentary, it's not about his career. Ted McDonnell, who's another Australian who made the film, Ted McDonnell lets him talk and lets him talk and lets him talk. There's no structure to the film. It's a conversation. And it's Doyle talking. Ted McDonnell is just made a film about Phil Noyce, and that's in post-production now. And Ted just lets Christopher Doyle talk. And Christopher Doyle is the most charismatic, magnetic man you'll see in a long time, a long time. He's funny. He's incredibly talented. He's got an eye that is unlike anybody's eye, and he doesn't care about being professional. So he's
Okay.
just he is who he is, and so what comes out of his mouth is fresh, it's original, it's very funny. He talks about living in Sydney. He talks about living in Hong Kong, and he talks about his art. The film is cut with his art. So not only is he a cinematographer, but he's a painter, and the film is cut with some beautiful art. And Ted is an Australian journalist turned filmmaker, and he took 3 years to make the film, and he funded it with government grants, private investors put in money, and his credit cards.
Yes.
So he maxed his credit cards out, and that's dedication. It's probably a bit insane as well, a bit of both. Christopher Doyle's a creative, and he lives on his own terms, and he's not beholden to anyone. And even if you've never heard of Christopher Doyle, Like the Wind is a must for the weekend as a counter to Gallipoli, because you'll be intrigued and fascinated by this man. Absolutely fascinated. That's a film that's on Apple TV, and Ted has recently sold the film to SBS, so it'll be screening soon on SBS, SBS On Demand, and World Movies. And Ted's next film about Phil Noyce won't be far off either. They're two great films for the weekend, all for the week. Gallipoli is available on Foxtel and Binge, and Like the Wind is available on Apple TV.
Did you say WOG movies?
World Movies.
World movies. Okay. Yes. Okay. Uh, no, that would have been very nice. I mean, no, there's the group, WOGs without work. The world movies. I like watching that TV channel. So it's very nice because it's next to SBS Food. I flick between the two, 33 and 32. And,
That's it. How's that? Very, very, very nice to watch both channels.
yes.
But I just thought we'd touch on those two Australian films because Gallipoli is relevant for the weekend, and Ted's film, Like the Wind on Christopher Doyle. Christopher Doyle needs to find a wider audience, and it doesn't matter that they're Cantonese films. The film, you can watch them with the sound turned down. They're beautiful to look at. And he's seriously up there with Storaro, one of the great cinematographers of the world.
Now, you said earlier on that some people don't like documentaries. Why is that?
I don't think people. Uh, Probably people our age tend to enjoy them a lot more than younger people. I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
people have got the. I don't think younger people have got the patience for them.
Hmm. Interesting term. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But Ted is Ted has done a film on a slum in the Philippines. He's done a film on Christopher Doyle. He's done a film on Phil Noyce, and he's looking to do a film on Leslie Chung next, perhaps, who's a great canto pop star. But Ted is an Australian treasure as well. He's a very good filmmaker, and the fact that he's selling the films and getting bigger and better with every film, he's Ted's somebody to watch as well. Definitely somebody to watch. Ted McDonald.
Jen McDonald. Okay. Good name to follow, to pay attention to. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, we'll have to say thank you to David Bongiorno for giving us these two tips for today. And well, one specific theme for Anzac Day. And have you been watching? What have you been watching lately?
I've watched. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I watched Cinema Paradiso again.
Ah, bello, bellissimo.
That,
Yes.
that's. I watched that with my son. He's 18. He'd never seen it before,
Oh,
and he's. I'm teaching him, albeit slowly. He's got Australian and American films to watch that are far more important and far more relevant to him. But I'm showing him some Italian cinema, and
mm,
Cinema Paradiso is one of those films. And that's a film that gets better with age. Uh, the coda at the end with the kisses is as powerful as ever.
mm.
And one of the things about that film, I mean, when was the last time you saw Cinema Paradiso?
Again, I did see that one. Maybe not long after it came out.
That's evergreen. It will
Yeah.
endure forever.
Yes.
Tornatore made that. Tornatore made that in 88, 89 as a
Yeah.
Valentine, as a love letter to cinema because he believed cinema was finished in its form, and he's probably right. The magic period of cinema would be gone with the wind 1935 to about 1990. Cinema is very different now, which is why we don't really touch on the Avenger movies and the Marvel comic movies because they're just
Yeah.
not appropriate or interesting in any shape or form.
Ah, okay. Well, again, thank you, David, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Ciao. Thanks, Antonio.